The Ashford Tower lobby at 9:53 on a Tuesday morning. Katherine Ashford strode across the polished marble with Henry Sterling and two Sterling Bradford associates behind her, a leather folder pressed to her chest. 40 meters ahead, Nathan Brennan turned from the reception counter with a visitor badge in his hand. The collision was small as shoulder. A startled breath, the folder spilling across the floor. Nathan dropped to one knee and gathered the papers in 3 quick motions, holding them out without looking up. Katherine's voice cut clean and cold for everyone to hear. "This isn't where you belong. Find the exit before I call security." The lobby fell silent. Nathan straightened, set the folder on the reception counter, and walked away. Katherine had no idea who she had just threatened. Before sunset that day, the entire boardroom would all know. 2 hours earlier, in a small kitchen in Ballard, Nathan Brennan poured cereal into 2 bowls and slid one across the counter to his daughter. Lily Brennan was 9 years old. She wore her favorite blue cardigan, a gift from her mother 3 Christmases ago, and her hair was held back with a clip shaped like a paper airplane. On the refrigerator, taped beside a grocery list, was her latest drawing, a long-bodied jet rendered in pencil and crayon, the wings shaded with careful attention to the angle of light. "You'll be late for the bus," Nathan said quietly. "I won't," Lily said, and ate her cereal in measured spoonfuls. "Are you wearing the gray jacket today?" "Yes." Mama liked that one. Nathan looked at her, and then at the drawing on the refrigerator, and said nothing for a long moment. He was 40 years old. His wife Claire had died of pancreatic cancer 4 years and 3 months earlier. In the time since, he had stopped attending department dinners, stopped publishing, stopped answering the phone when colleagues called from Cambridge. He had moved with Lily to Seattle the summer after the funeral, traded a corner office overlooking the Charles River for a 1-bedroom apartment in Ballard, and started tutoring high school math and physics 3 afternoons a week at the public library. Nathan had been a full professor of aerospace engineering at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology from 2003 to 2021. He had supervised 11 doctoral students. He had published 23 papers in propulsion theory. None of his neighbors in Ballard knew any of this, and that was how he wanted it. He drove Lily to the bus stop in his old sedan, walked her to the curb, and waited until the doors closed behind her. Then he checked his watch, returned to the apartment, and changed into a clean shirt under the gray jacket. The application sat on the kitchen table. Lily had been recommended for the Ashford Aerospace STEM Scholarship, full tuition through high school at Forrester Academy, plus a mentorship pairing with an engineer at the company. Parents of finalists were required to attend a brief interview at 10 o'clock. He gathered the folder, tucked it under his arm, and walked out to the car. The drive downtown took 26 minutes. He parked in the visitor lot at Ashford Tower at 9:48, took the escalator up to the lobby, and approached the reception counter at 9:51. The receptionist, a young woman whose name tag read Dana, scanned his identification, printed a visitor badge, and handed it across with a practiced smile. "Mr. Brennan, 22nd floor. The elevators are to your left, past the seating area. Thank you." He clipped the badge to his lapel and turned from the counter. Across the lobby, on the 25th floor above him, Katherine Ashford was already in motion. She had been awake since 4:30. She had read the 3rd test report on her phone before her coffee finished brewing. The report had used the word inconclusive 11 times in 22 pages. By 6 o'clock, she was in the executive gym. By 7, she was at her desk. By 8:40, she was in the underground garage, receiving the Sterling Bradford team Henry Sterling himself, his counsel Margaret Wentworth, and the operations principal James Worthington and her assistant had handed her a leather folder containing the revised projections, the updated test summary, and the goodwill clause on the STEM scholarship that they had agreed to co-sponsor as part of the deal. She did not have time to look down. She walked. At 9:53, the elevator doors opened on the lobby floor. Katherine Ashford was 36 years old. She had inherited Ashford Aerospace Systems 18 months earlier, at the death of her father, William Ashford, and in those 18 months she had survived 2 attempted board coups, lost 4 senior engineers to a competitor, watched the stock price drop 19%, and learned that the supposed family business her father had spoken of with such certainty was actually a leveraged construction balanced on the assumption that the next propulsion contract would close. The Sterling Bradford contract was that contract. It would close today, or it would not close. And if it did not close, Walter Pemberton, 62 years old, 29 years on the Ashford board, a man who had never forgiven her father for promoting her over his son, would call the no-confidence vote he had been quietly assembling for 6 weeks. She crossed the lobby fast. The Sterling team came behind her at her shoulder. She was looking at her phone. She did not see the man turning from the reception counter until she was already inside his orbit. The folder went down. Papers fanned across the marble. Nathan Brennan dropped to one knee. He gathered the sheets in 3 quick motions, ordered them by the printed page numbers without seeming to look, and held the folder out to her with the corner squared. Katherine's training did not include receiving a folder from a stranger with grace. Her training, in that moment, came from her father, who had taught her that the lobby of Ashford Tower was a stage, and the appearance of weakness was the only currency that mattered. This isn't where you belong. Find the exit before I call security. She heard her own voice before she had decided to use it. The lobby fell silent. Henry Sterling, behind her, frowned at his shoes. Margaret Wentworth glanced at James Worthington. James Worthington did not move. Nathan straightened. He set the folder on the reception counter beside Dana's keyboard. He looked at Katherine for 1 second, no longer, and then he walked toward the elevators and pressed the button for the 22nd floor. Katherine watched the back of the gray jacket for half a moment, then turned to Sterling and gestured toward her private elevator. Henry, apologies. We're in the executive boardroom on 25. They moved. The lobby resumed its low hum. The whole exchange had lasted 22 seconds. At the reception counter, Dana pulled the folder toward her, opened it, and prepared to file the loose papers into the visitor records. The first sheet was a parent information form for the Ashford Aerospace STEM scholarship interview at 10 o'clock. The parent name was printed at the top. Nathan William Brennan. Dana paused. She turned to the second page. Professional history. 2003 to 2021 full professor. Department of Aeronautics and Astronautics. Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Areas of specialization: high-temperature propulsion systems, scramjet combustion stability, hypersonic flow dynamics. 23 peer-reviewed publications, 11 doctoral students supervised. She sat back in her chair. She read the sheet a second time. She did not say anything to anyone. She slid the folder into the secure drawer beneath her desk, locked it, and made a note in her morning log to flag it for the scholarship coordinator after lunch. On the 22nd floor, the elevator doors opened, and Nathan Brennan stepped out toward the interview room. The 10 o'clock interview lasted 40 minutes. A junior member of the scholarship committee asked Nathan about his daughter's interests, her grades, her behavior in classrooms, her attendance. Nathan answered in short, complete sentences. The committee member made notes. At the end, she thanked him, said the finalist decision would be communicated within 7 days, and walked him to the elevator. Nathan drove home. He did not eat lunch. At 2:30 that same afternoon, Katherine's assistant placed a printed agenda on her desk for the 3 o'clock executive briefing. The briefing had 3 items. First, an update from Walter Pemberton on the test program. Second, the Sterling Bradford term sheet review. Third, the Year 1 mentorship presentation for the STEM scholarship cohort, to be delivered by lead engineer Ethan Caldwell, as part of Sterling Bradford's goodwill clause. The scholarship parent finalists had also been invited to brief introductions before the mentorship slides of courtesy. The committee chair had insisted. Given that Sterling Bradford was co-sponsoring, Katherine read the agenda twice. She did not connect any of the names to the man in the lobby that morning. At 3 o'clock, she entered the executive boardroom. Henry Sterling was already seated. Margaret Wentworth and James Worthington flanked him. Walter Pemberton sat at the far end, his arms folded. The scholarship committee chair, a woman named Eleanor Hayes, sat with the 2 parent finalists who had been able to come on short notice. The second parent was a software developer from Bellevue. The first was Nathan Brennan. Katherine stopped inside the doorway for 1 fraction of a second. Then she sat. Miss Hayes, please proceed. Eleanor Hayes introduced the 2 parents. Nathan inclined his head. Walter Pemberton leaned back in his chair and addressed Nathan directly, without waiting for the committee's lead. Mr. Brennan, The form here says you tutor high school math at the public library. 3 afternoons a week. Is that correct? Yes. Forgive me. This room is currently negotiating a contract whose technical scope exceeds the working knowledge of most aerospace doctorates. The scholarship program is meant to identify families capable of supporting that level of work. Could you walk us through how you would, in concrete terms, prepare your daughter to participate in a mentorship at this company? Henry Sterling glanced at Walter, then at Katherine. He said nothing. Nathan looked at Walter Pemberton for a moment. And then he answered, calmly and briefly, that his daughter had taught herself to read scientific papers from the open archives at age 7, that she could already perform polynomial arithmetic without paper, and that he would prepare her in the same way he had prepared every student he had ever taught, slowly, honestly, and without lying to her about what she did not yet know. Walter Pemberton smiled, the small, indulgent smile of a man preparing to recommend rejection. The boardroom door opened. Ethan Caldwell came in fast, holding a tablet and an underarm folder of mentorship slides, his shirt slightly damp from running up 2 flights of stairs. Because the elevator had been held on 12, he stopped 4 steps inside the room. His eyes moved across the table. They stopped on the man in the gray jacket sitting opposite Walter Pemberton. The tablet slipped out of his hand and landed flat on the carpet. Professor Brennan? The room did not breathe. Ethan straightened. He looked at Katherine, then at Henry Sterling, then back at Nathan. I'm so sorry. Professor, I didn't know you were in Seattle. Nathan said quietly, Hello, Ethan. It's been a while. Henry Sterling looked down at the printed agenda in his hand. Then he looked at Katherine. Miss Ashford. May I confirm that this gentleman is Dr. Nathan Brennan, formerly of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology? Katherine opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Ethan answered for her. He was the chair of my doctoral committee. He wrote the foundational papers on the very combustion problem we have been failing on for the last 14 months. Henry Sterling set his pen down. He turned in his chair to face Katherine fully. Miss Ashford. At 9:53 this morning, you told this gentleman to find the exit before security escorted him out. Katherine did not speak. She looked at Nathan. Nathan looked at the wall behind her. After a long moment, Katherine said, very quietly, I see. Let's continue the interview, please. Nathan nodded once. The room reassembled itself around the silence. At 7:43 that evening, Katherine sat alone in her office on the 25th floor. The scholarship committee had voted, after the interview reconvened on neutral terms, to award Lily Brennan a full scholarship to Forrester Academy on the merits of her testing record and recommendation letters. Walter Pemberton had left the building at 4:30 without speaking to anyone. Henry Sterling and his team had returned to their hotel with a polite agreement to reconvene the term sheet conversation in the morning. The mentorship presentation had been postponed. Katherine had not eaten since 6 in the morning. The skyline outside her window was orange and dimming. She pulled up the search engine on her desktop and typed the name, Nathan William Brennan, 23 papers. The third result was a faculty page on the MIT website, archived. The photograph was older than the man in the gray jacket, but unmistakably him. Areas of research, the same words Ethan had used 6 months earlier in an internal memo. The words that had since become a wall the engineering team could not climb over. She read the faculty page in full. Then she read 3 of the abstracts. Then she found the obituary, dated 3 years and 10 months earlier, of Claire Brennan, music teacher, beloved wife of Nathan, mother of Lily, age 36 at the time of her death. She closed the browser. She sat very still for a long moment. Then she picked up the phone. Nathan answered on the 4th ring. This is Brennan. Mr. Brennan. This is Katherine Ashford. There was a pause on the line. In the background, faintly, she heard the soft static of a small apartment at night, the hum of a refrigerator, the wind against a window. How did you get this number? The scholarship file. Yes. I am calling to apologize. What I said this morning in the lobby was inexcusable. I was wrong. I am sorry. Nathan did not answer for several seconds. When he spoke, his voice was even and unhurried. Thank you for the call, Miss Ashford. It is not necessary. It is necessary. My daughter received a scholarship. That is what I came for. The rest does not need to be settled, Mr. Brennan. I want to be clear that the scholarship decision was made independently. It had nothing to do with the lobby. I understand. Thank you for confirming it. Katherine paused. She had prepared 3 follow-up sentences. None of them seemed appropriate now. Mr. Brennan, may I ask one question? Yes. Why are you in Seattle? Another pause. My wife is buried in Lakeview Cemetery. We moved here so my daughter could visit her on Sundays. Good night, Miss Ashford. The line went silent. Katherine set the phone down very carefully. She did not move for several minutes. Outside the window, the light over Elliott Bay had gone entirely. The cleaning crew on the floor below began their slow round, the soft hiss of vacuums passing in and out of empty offices. At 8:15, she stood up, gathered her coat, and took the elevator to the garage. In her car, she sat with her hands on the steering wheel for 40 seconds before starting the engine. She drove home along the waterfront without the radio on. The third test was not the problem. The third test was a symptom. The fourth test failed at 10:17 on Monday morning. The combustion chamber pressure had peaked correctly. The fuel injector array had performed to specification, but the burn had collapsed at 142 seconds, 16 seconds before the threshold required by the Stirling-Bradford specification. The engineering team gathered in the test bay had been silent for 2 minutes before anyone reset the instrumentation. Ethan Caldwell stood at the back of the bay with his hands in his pockets. By noon, the data was on Katherine's desk. By 12:30, Walter Pemberton had requested an emergency board meeting for Friday afternoon. By 1 o'clock, 3 independent sources had confirmed to Katherine that Walter had the votes. At 2, she called Ethan into her office and closed the door. Sit down. He sat. Ethan. Why did I not know who he was? Ethan looked at his hands. He asked me not to tell anyone. When? 4 years ago. 3 weeks after his wife died. He called me at the lab. I was a postdoc at Caltech then, and he said he was leaving Cambridge. He said he was going somewhere quiet with Lily. He said if I ever ran into anyone who knew him, I should say I had lost touch. Why? Ethan was quiet for a moment. He said, let her grow up normal. He said Lily had spent 8 months in hospital corridors at her mother's bedside, and he was not going to let her grow up watching her father be admired by strangers. He said he wanted her to know him as her father. Only that. Katherine did not speak. When I joined Ashford 14 months ago, I did not know he was here. I found out from the receptionist last Wednesday. Dana saw his name on the scholarship list and came to me privately. She did not know whether to tell anyone. I told her not to. Ethan, I am sorry. I am aware of how it looks. But he taught me everything I know about the kind of engineering this company exists to do. And when he asked me to keep his name out of a room he was not in, I did it. I would do it again. Katherine sat for a long moment. Then she nodded once. Get out. Ethan stood. He paused at the door. Katherine? Yes. He's been at the Ballard Branch Library on Saturday mornings for 3.5 years. 8 to noon. He tutors students. Anyone can sign up. He left. Katherine looked at the closed door for a long time. Across the city that afternoon, in a small classroom at the public library, Nathan Brennan was walking a 10th grader through a problem in linear algebra. He did not yet know that the 4th test had failed. That afternoon, Katherine did not return calls from Walter Pemberton, did not return the term sheet draft to Henry Stirling, did not eat the lunch her assistant had brought up at 12:30. She stood at the window of her office and watched a container ship move slowly southward through Elliott Bay until the gray of the water and the gray of the sky stopped distinguishing themselves from each other. At 5:30, her assistant knocked once and entered with the day's last memo. Katherine did not turn from the window. She heard the door close again. She heard the elevator descend and the floor go quiet around her. Somewhere across the city, a man she had thrown out of her lobby was teaching a teenager to factor a polynomial. She had spent 14 months looking for the people who could save the company. And she had been looking past the only one who could. At 7:55 on Tuesday morning, Ethan Caldwell walked into Katherine's office carrying a manila folder. He set it on her desk. He did not sit. I want to be clear that I have not shown this to anyone. I have not cited it. I have not used it. I have kept it in a locked drawer at home for 6 years. He gave it to me 2 weeks before I defended my dissertation, and he asked me to read it and then to forget about it. I have not forgotten about it. Katherine looked at the folder. What is it? It is an unpublished draft paper of his. Combustion stability under variable injector geometry. It is, in my opinion, the most important piece of propulsion theory written in this country in the last 15 years. He never submitted it. He told me he had stopped publishing the year his wife was diagnosed. I am giving it to you because we have spent 14 months walking around a wall that he wrote the door for. And you should see it. Katherine opened the folder slowly. The cover page was a draft manuscript dated November 2015. The title was unassuming. Below the title was a handwritten note in blue pen. For Ethan. Not for circulation. NB. She read the abstract. Then she read the first section. Then she read the third section where Nathan had derived, in 7 equations, a closed-form prediction for the exact failure mode the fourth test had exhibited 18 hours earlier. She closed the folder. Have we been making this mistake the entire time? Yes. For how long? From the original specification. The injector array geometry we were given by Sterling Bradford was not wrong. But the operating envelope was incomplete. The paper predicts collapse at exactly the regime we are operating in. We have been trying to bandage it. He would have asked us in the first meeting to redesign the regime. Katherine sat very still. Why did he stop publishing? His wife was diagnosed in May 2015. He told me in November he had finished the draft on the kitchen table while she slept on the couch. He said he could not stand to send a paper to a journal that would take 8 months to peer review when his wife had 8 months to live. He never sent it. After she died, he did not write again. Katherine looked at the handwritten note on the cover page. He gave it to you. He said someone might need it someday. There was a long silence. The skyline outside the window was beginning to gray with morning rain. Katherine said, Ethan, if we go to him, what would he want? Ethan considered. He would want his daughter not to know. Anything else? He would want me to lead the technical conversation. He would not want to sit at a table and be deferred to by people who threw him out of a lobby 6 days ago. He would want to be a quiet consultant. He would want me to bring him questions and bring back answers. All right, Katherine. Yes. If you go to him, go on Saturday at the library. Go alone. Do not bring an assistant. Do not bring a folder. Ask him properly. Katherine nodded. Ethan. Thank you. He picked up the manila folder, set it back on her desk gently, and left her office. Across town that morning, the lights in the Ballard Library tutoring section had just come on. Nathan Brennan was unpacking a folder of worksheets at his usual desk. He did not yet know that on Saturday, at 5 minutes before 10 o'clock, Katherine Ashford would be waiting in her car at the corner. The Ballard Branch Library opened at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning. Katherine arrived at 9:55 and waited in her car at the corner until the doors were unlocked. She wore jeans, a navy sweater, and no jewelry. She had left her phone in the glove compartment. Inside, the library smelled of paper and rain. The children's section ran along the eastern wall in light wood and primary colors. At a low round table near the windows, a small girl in a blue cardigan sat reading a book about the history of flight. Her hair was held back with a paper airplane clip. At a study desk in the corner of the adult section, Nathan Brennan sat across from a teenage boy and worked through a calculus problem with a pencil. He wrote one line, paused, turned the page back to the student, and waited. The student frowned, then nodded, then took the pencil himself. Katherine waited by a shelf of biographies and pretended to read the spine of a book she did not see. The lesson ended at 10:30. The boy thanked Nathan, packed up his bag, and left. Nathan straightened the pencil in its case and looked up. Katherine walked over. Mr. Brennan, may I sit? He looked at her for a long moment. Then he gestured to the chair the student had just vacated. She sat. I am not here to apologize again. I have done that, and you have accepted it as much as you intend to. I am here to ask for your help. With what? Combustion stability. Variable injector geometry. The fourth test failed at 142 seconds last Monday. Ethan Caldwell showed me the paper you wrote in 2015. We cannot solve this problem without you. The Sterling Bradford contract closes or it does not close, and if it does not close, the company will not survive the year. I am asking you to consult. Nathan did not answer for a moment. 2 conditions. Yes, Ethan leads. I do not sit at meetings. I do not stand in test bays. I send notes through Ethan, and Ethan sends questions to me. If you need me in person, we meet here on Saturdays, and you bring no one. Yes. Second, my daughter does not learn who I was. Not from you, not from your staff, not from a magazine that gets hold of this story in 3 years. If she learns it from me when I decide to tell her. If I see any sign that you have not protected this, I stop. Yes. Then I will help. Send Ethan to me Monday morning. 8 o'clock. Here. I will start that afternoon. Katherine nodded. Mr. Brennan. Thank you. You are paying my hourly rate. It is $180. Send the invoice through the library's tutoring account. Make it a research grant. My daughter does not need to know the difference. Yes. There was a small movement at the edge of the table. Lily Brennan had come up quietly with her book under one arm. She looked at Katherine. Daddy, who is that lady? Nathan turned. His face changed. He smiled at her a small smile, but a real one, and reached out and adjusted the paper airplane clip in her hair. This is Miss Ashford. She works downtown. She wanted to ask me about a math question. Lily considered Katherine with the grave seriousness of a 9-year-old. Is it a hard one? Katherine met her eyes. Yes, it is a very hard one. Lily nodded as if she had expected this, climbed onto the chair beside her father, and opened her book to the page she had marked. Katherine left the library at 10:56. On Monday morning, Ethan Caldwell drove to the Ballard Library at 7:45 with 3 test reports and a list of 41 questions. He returned to Ashford Tower at noon with 12 pages of handwritten notes in Nathan's small, careful script. By Tuesday afternoon, the engineering team had reconfigured the injector array geometry to a regime 4 steps removed from the original Sterling Bradford specification. By Wednesday, they had a new operating envelope. By Thursday morning, Ethan had carried 2 more pages of notes back from the library, and the team had run a cold flow simulation that, for the first time in 14 months, predicted a stable burn through the full 180 seconds. On Thursday afternoon, Katherine called Henry Sterling. Henry, we want to run the 5th test on Saturday morning. I would like you to be there. There was a long pause on the line. Katherine, is this on Brennan's advice? Yes. Then we will be there. The 5th test was scheduled for 10 o'clock Saturday morning. Nathan was not present. Katherine, Ethan, Henry Sterling, Margaret Wentworth, James Worthington, and the engineering lead team gathered in the observation bay at the test facility in Renton. Walter Pemberton was not invited. The countdown ran. The ignition fired at 0. The combustion chamber pressure climbed to the predicted curve at 7 seconds, held flat for the prescribed window, and at 142 seconds, the point of the previous collapse, the burn did not collapse. The instrumentation continued to record. At 160 seconds, Henry Sterling stood up. At 170 seconds, Margaret Wentworth set down her coffee. At 180 seconds, the burn completed on schedule, and the system shut down clean. The observation bay was silent for the space of 2 breaths. Then Henry Sterling turned to Katherine. We will sign on Monday. The board meeting convened at 3 o'clock Monday afternoon. Walter Pemberton tabled the no-confidence motion. The vote was 8-2 against. He gathered his papers, said nothing, and walked out of the boardroom. He did not return. On Tuesday morning, the Sterling Bradford contract was signed in Katherine's office at 10:15. The press release went out at 11. By noon, the Ashford Aerospace Systems stock had recovered 7%. By the close of business, it had recovered 11. Ethan returned to his office at 1 and found a single sheet of paper on his desk in Nathan's hand. The note said only, "Tell her the engine will hold for the full envelope. Tell her not to revise the test schedule for at least 6 weeks. Tell her she is not finished." NB Ethan folded the page, put it in the locked drawer, where the manila folder had lived for 6 years, and went back to work. At 6 o'clock that evening, Katherine drove to the Ballard Library. Nathan was at his usual desk, working with a high school student on a physics problem. Katherine waited by the window. When the student left, she walked over. It's signed. I heard. The first invoice will be in the mail tomorrow. Routed through the tutoring account. As agreed. Thank you, Mr. Brennan. The scholarship ceremony is on Saturday. Your daughter will be receiving her award publicly. There will be press. Nathan looked at her. My daughter has been waiting for this Saturday for 11 days. She has selected the dress and instructed me on the shoes. If you are asking whether I will be there, yes. If you are asking whether I want any part of the ceremony to be about me, no. Treat me as another parent. Katherine nodded. Yes. She left. The Ashford Aerospace STEM Scholarship Ceremony was held in the rooftop garden of the Ashford Tower on the following Saturday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The light was clear and cold. Mount Rainier stood at the south edge of the sky, white and absolute. The way it does on the 2 or 3 afternoons a year, when the air over Puget Sound is clean enough to permit it. 12 scholarship recipients filed onto the small platform beneath a row of polished aluminum letters that spelled the program name. Lily Brennan was the third to be called. She wore a navy blue dress with a small white collar and the paper airplane clip in her hair. She walked across the platform with the slow, careful steps of a 9-year-old who has been instructed by her father not to run, and she accepted the framed certificate from Katherine Ashford with both hands. Katherine knelt slightly to meet her eye. Congratulations, Lily. Thank you, Miss Ashford. Your father told me you like airplanes. I like the part where they leave the ground. Katherine smiled. It was the first time in 14 months that anyone in the company had seen her smile in public. That is the best part. Lily nodded with that same 9-year-old gravity and returned to her seat in the front row beside her father. Nathan met her with a hand on her shoulder and a small, private nod that meant well done. Lily settled the certificate on her lap and rested her hands on it, as if it might fly. After the ceremony, the parents and recipients gathered for refreshments at the north end of the rooftop. Katherine spoke briefly with Henry Sterling, who had flown in for the ceremony, and then she excused herself and walked to the south parapet, where Mount Rainier filled the horizon. Nathan was already there. They stood beside each other in silence for the length of a minute. It is a good view, Katherine said. It is. My father used to bring me up here on Saturdays when I was small. He would buy a cup of coffee from the lobby, and we would stand here, and he would tell me which mountain that was. Nathan said nothing. I have been wanting to say something to you for 2 weeks. I did not know how to say it. I will say it badly. She paused. He waited. Thank you for all of it. Nathan looked at her. Then he looked back at the mountain. Thank you for asking properly the second time. They stood there a while longer. Down on the platform behind them, Lily Brennan was showing her framed certificate to a girl her own age, who had also won the scholarship, and the two of them were laughing about something, a small private joke that neither of the adults at the parapet was meant to hear. Katherine said very quietly, She is a remarkable child. Yes, you did well. Nathan said nothing for a moment. Then he said, Claire did most of it. I have tried to finish what she started. The wind moved across the rooftop. Mount Rainier did not change. After a while, they both walked back toward the platform, separately and a few minutes apart. 6 weeks passed. Nathan continued his Wednesday consulting at the Ballard Library, 1 hour with Ethan each week, at the rate of $180 billed through the tutoring account. Katherine did not attend these meetings. She read the notes Ethan brought back, asked the follow-up questions in writing, and routed the answers through Ethan in turn. The arrangement was clean. The Sterling Bradford program advanced. 2 additional contracts began their first round of preliminary review. In late November, the rain came in earnest. On a Wednesday evening, Nathan walked out of the library at 6 o'clock and found Katherine waiting under the awning by the front entrance with the collar of her coat turned up against the wind. Mr. Brennan, I will not keep you. There is a gala on the 18th of December at the Olympic Hotel. The Aerospace Foundation hosts it every year. Henry Sterling has personally requested that you attend as a guest of the company. I told him I would ask. If the answer is no, the answer is no. Nathan considered the question. My daughter, she is invited. There will be other children there. There will be a separate program room with a film and supervised activities. She would not be expected to stay in the ballroom. Nathan was quiet. I will think about it. I will tell you by Friday. Thank you. She turned to go. Miss Ashford. Yes. It is a long way from a lobby in October. She smiled, small and quick, and walked to her car. That night at dinner, Lily Brennan put her fork down halfway through a serving of pasta and looked at her father across the kitchen table. Daddy. Yes. Do you like Miss Ashford? Nathan set his own fork down. He looked at his daughter for a long moment. I respect her, sweetheart. Lily considered this with the same 9-year-old seriousness she had brought to the certificate on the rooftop. That is how Mama said you started liking her too. Nathan did not answer for a moment. Then he reached across the table and adjusted the paper airplane clip in his daughter's hair. Eat your dinner. Okay. On the 18th of December, the Olympic Hotel ballroom held 340 guests in formal attire, under the slow rotation of a chandelier the size of a small car. Nathan wore a charcoal suit Claire had picked out for him 8 years earlier. Lily wore a green dress and her paper airplane clip, and was, by 8:30, asleep on a small couch in the supervised program room down the hall. Katherine wore black. She crossed the ballroom toward the south windows at 9:20, after the speeches were over and the orchestra had begun. And she found Nathan standing alone with a glass of water at the window, watching the lights along the waterfront. They did not speak for a long moment. It is a good view, she said. It is. The orchestra moved into a slower piece. Behind them, the room was warm with conversation. Outside, a ferry crossed the dark water toward Bainbridge Island, its lights small and steady. Neither of them had been looking. Neither of them had needed to.